But the big question I want to answer, is the wide fit wide enough? This is something that has kept me away from HOKA as a brand. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel for another trail running shoe review. This time it's the HOKA One One Speedgoat 4 in wide fit. As with all my reviews, we'll go through build quality, durability, comfort, sizing, fit, all of that good stuff. But the big question I want to answer, is the wide fit wide enough? This is something that has kept me away from HOKA as a brand in the past. I've tried the Challenger, Speedgoat Standard Fit, and I found them both way too narrow in the toe box and in the heel. Stability was a little bit of an issue for me and I didn't find them very comfortable. But I'm desperate for a more cushioned approach to some of my longer runs to save my legs in training, so I thought let's give the wide fit a go and bring you guys the results. And before we kick things off, a quick disclaimer: I have paid for these shoes with my own money. Nobody's going to get to see this review before you guys do, and it's coming from someone who has a lot of problems with their feet, tends to use insoles quite often, so if I can get on with a shoe, almost anyone can. Right, let's get down to build quality and the upper. We'll begin from the front. So the toe box in the upper is a mesh overlay. You've got some plastic around the front which acts as a little bit of a toe bumper. You then go into the mesh, which is quite breathable and it's quite flexible. I heard some Speedgoat 3 users complain that this was a bit restrictive. It's that's been sorted out in the 4 by the looks of it. You've also got this little kind of tag bit on the front, this plastic area, that does bunch up a little bit when you're doing a toe off. Now, I've not had any problems with this. It's not pressed for me on the bridge of my foot at all, so I wouldn't be concerned about that at all. The one thing I would be marginally concerned about is actually where the overlay connects with the mesh, just here on the sides. I'm just seeing a tiny little bit come away there. Now, it could just be this shoe, or it could be that's just a real standard thing and it'll last forever. We'll find out in my longer term review with that. Moving on to the lacing, you get plenty to work with, so you can do the runner's knot as I do. And just looking on here, you've got a bit of a tag through the tongue, so that stops the tongue moving too much. Not to mention the fact that the tongue is gusseted further down, so that won't be doing any movement at all. It's actually a thinner tongue than in the 3, I believe. I was initially concerned that might press on the bridge of my foot. I've had issues with other shoes in the past with that, but it doesn't. I don't feel the laces at all, and you get a fantastic lockdown with the shoe as well. I was really impressed with that. Around the arches, you've got just enough cushioning there to not irritate the ankle. Again, that's something I struggle with, specifically with Inov 8 shoes. And the heel counter itself is well cushioned as well. Comfort-wise in the upper, I've had absolutely no issues so far. And moving on to the midsole, we have a lightweight foam, which is actually really good at soaking up roots and rocks on the trails. In terms of comfort, this adds a massive bonus to the Speedgoat 4. The only thing is, it also adds a little bit of weight. When you take this out the box, it doesn't feel like the lightest. But what I will say is, putting it on and running in the thing, you really can't feel it. It is a maximalist shoe, but it's also quite responsive. In the toe off, I felt like I was getting something back from the shoe, and I didn't feel like the high stack height was slowing me down. Now, we can't talk about stack height without discussing just how high this is. At 32mm in the heel, that is going to cause you some problems on the really technical terrain. I've seen some people in other reviews discuss this already, but to be honest, I've been really impressed with how stable this shoe is, and it's something we're going to come on to later in the review because it's specific to the wider fit for me. And that takes us nicely onto the outsole, which is a Vibram rubber outsole. Around 5mm lugs, that's what HOKA claim. I think it's a little bit less than that, but they're omnidirectional and they are really sticky. This Vibram compound has got to be one of the better on the market. I've had it on roots, rocks, even in mud, and I've had absolutely no problems. I wouldn't go in claggy mud because of the way the lugs are. I think it could gather mud quite easily on the bottom, but to date, touch wood, I've been perfectly fine. One of the courses I specifically go on in Conisford has a downhill section that's fairly steep. It's got roots, rocks and mud all in the same descent, and I was turning corners with absolute ease, which also goes to boast the stability I was referring to earlier on. Don't get me wrong, this is not a fell shoe. I wouldn't be using this in winter on really claggy courses, but throughout the summer, even when we've had a downpour of rain in the typical UK weather, I think this will work a treat. And that takes us nicely onto comfort. As I've already suggested, it's spot on. The 32mm in the heel and 28mm in the forefoot do such a great job of soaking up any rocks and roots you may come across on the trail, but the width and the flexible mesh in the upper also help hold your foot without being cumbersome. On the toe off, I've not had any issues with this plastic bit in the front like some people have suggested in older models they've had. The heel counter, barely even notice it, which is a big bonus for me. And I tend to have problems around the eyelets of the laces, sometimes rubbing on my ankles. Not had that either. The tongue is thin, but I think that's a bonus because it takes a little bit of weight off the shoe. And with it being a gusseted tongue, it stays in place. The lockdown is cracking as well, so 10 out of 10 for comfort. In terms of fit, it's true to size. I'm 8.5 in UK, usually in all other shoes. It's no different with these. What I would suggest is if you generally enjoy like your in of 8 shoes or your Salomons, so you're quite a narrow fit, I would go with the standard fit Speedgoat 4 in whatever size you are. If you struggle with the width of some shoes, go with the wide. You don't need to size up in the standard, just go with the wide. It gives you a wider fit throughout the shoe. And that leads us into stability and ride, which again are both fantastic. The extra width in this shoe has really helped on all types of terrain. I wouldn't batter an eyelid taking this onto the Wainstones in North Yorkshire, which is one of the more technical areas around here. I probably wouldn't want to take it up into the Lake District on Scarf or Pike or somewhere that's got a lot of scree on, because you might end up turning your ankle, but that's not specific to this shoe, that's specific to the stack height. And as suggested earlier, these are a very responsive shoe. They give you something back on the trail. They don't just soak up all of your energy with that thick midsole. Let's talk pros and cons of the Speedgoat 4 wide fit. We'll begin with pros. First of all, the Vibram outsole is brilliant. Sticky rubber, very durable, works on almost any terrain. The stack height I take as being a bonus personally. The way it soaks up anything that the trail throws at you I think is fantastic. Stability is also going to go in as a pro, purely because I'm so impressed with how with that stack height the shoe can still be so stable on difficult terrain. I love the gusseted tongue. Other manufacturers don't use that. I think it's criminal. The fact it doesn't move is such a big bonus because I do have problems when the tongue starts moving around the corner, and the lockdown is fantastic in this shoe. But what are the cons of the Speedgoat 4? Well, the first one is actually one of the pros as well. It's the stack height. I think you've got to be selective over what you use this shoe for. Very technical terrain. It isn't really going to be ideal. You might end up rolling your ankle. The other con, which is probably a bit unfair on HOKA to be honest, is I do think it's going to give in the upper a bit sooner than I'd like, right in that corner that we discussed earlier on. And of course, the price point. At £125 retail, I know you can get discounted shoes, but these are so popular, it's very rare that they go on offer. So it is really at the top end. But in all honesty, with the way the shoe market's going now, shoes are coming up to that value anyway, so I would still pay it. And moving on to the two burning questions, is the wide fit wide enough, and what am I going to use this shoe for? We'll begin with the former. Yes, the wider fit in the Speedgoat 4 is definitely wide enough. I've tried all sorts of different branded shoes, including the HOKA standard fit, and I have struggled with width. I've got wider feet, I use insoles, not had an issue with the Speedgoat 4 at all. I've seen some reviews of people half reviewing the wide fit without even trying them on, saying that the toe box isn't any wider. It's actually wider all the way through the shoe. That's why it doesn't look wider. And the extra width in the heel is very welcome because it adds to the stability of the shoe. So what am I going to be using this shoe for? I would say a daily trainer for definite. Long run day, certainly. In terms of terrain, almost anything. Definitely not fell running, not the really muddy stuff, but anything that's a more compacted trail with roots or rocks I would do. I'd maybe stay away from slippery scree where you might turn your ankle, but anything else spot on. In terms of distance, I think you could use this for almost any distance race really, but I specifically will probably be going for marathon upwards. I've got the Hardwards 40 coming up literally in a week's time. By the time this review comes out, I've already done that race and it will have been in this shoe. So I'll link that up there and you can see how we got on. So in conclusion, the Speedgoat 4 wide fit from HOKA is definitely one to look at for those who struggle with a narrower fit shoe. It's got great stability, cracking grip on the bottom, works on almost any terrain. So at £125 retail, I feel it is worth the price tag and it's something I'm going to be using going forward. I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope it's been helpful. Any really specific questions, get them down in the comments. I'm more than happy to help anyone. And let me know, guys, what HOKA shoes have you been using? Have you tried the wider fit in other types of HOKA shoes? And how have you found those? I'd be interested to find out. If you like this sort of content, why not subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future episodes when they go live? And if you enjoyed the review, please give me a thumbs up. It helps the channel with the YouTube algorithm and it'd be much appreciated. Okay guys, I will see you with the next one and thank you so much for watching. See you later.